Today we're going to learn about tuples. Remember that tuples are just lists, but these items are immutable. This means that our items cannot be changed. So once you update, you create a tuple, you cannot update it. So the format of creating a tuple is actually you have to place your elements inside this opening and the closing brackets. So that is maybe like you have a tuple of integers. So maybe like 2, 2, 3, 5. So items are placed actually in between, separated with commas. So we can actually like take in, for example, our first list. So let's have numbers. So let's say numbers that we have numbers of maybe even numbers 2, 4, 6. Sorry, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So once we have this number of elements, we can actually maybe like print them out. So you can say print, then you call numbers. So once you run your program, you will be able to check your outputs that this is a tuple by making sure that by actually showing you that this opening and closing a square bracket. So tuples, next thing, let's say you can access the elements just like list. So you can say numbers, then let's access the first element. So this is a way of accessing the first element. So we can print this, into our output. So print, then close, then we run it. So if we run this, we expect that the first element to be printed, that is number 2. So the next thing we want to check is let's perform maybe like multiplications, like the way we iterate through maybe elements in a list. So let's say we want to perform multiplication for these numbers. So we can actually like assign numbers directly, or we can directly use the assignment variable. So it's actually one of the most important part of Python programming, whereby it allows us to perform, like we can unpack the numbers. So we can unpack them into different variables. So but before that, let me show you that this is really immutable. So if you try to assign maybe our first element to 5, we are going to get a type error. So print numbers. So if we now try to run this, we get a type error. Tuple does not support item assignment. So you cannot actually update an item. So from this directly, then you can now observe that it tells you everything about tuples. That's why it's throwing an error. So we can try maybe multiply them by maybe trying to get access to their elements. So let's just try to minimize this so we can move quick. So you can say print, then we can get the multiplication. So or let's just assign this one to a new variable. So you can say numbers at 0. So first index, then remember statistic is used for multiplication. So then our next index, then also numbers at index 2. So if you now assign this to a variable, then we try to print this variable here, then we expect that just general multiplication will be performed of 2 times 4 is 8, 8 times 6 is 48. That's why we have this output. But this code might be a little bit too tiresome, so you cannot keep accessing or retyping repetitive variables. So you cannot be doing numbers each and every time, then trying to access them in actually like indexing. So Python actually provides us with something called unpacking. But before we unpack, still the same thing, you can like directly assign variables here. So you can say numbers at index 0, then we assign it to maybe a value of x, then maybe we can have numbers at index 1, then we can assign it to maybe y, then we can also have z. So let's call this one so I always like using xyz. So at our second index. So to do this, we can now do a multiplication of x asterisk y, then multiplied by z. Great. So I'm going to clear my output, then try to run this. You find that I will still receiving 48. But again, this is not an awesome way. So that's why we have unpacking in Python. So you can directly unpack numbers. So it's just normal unpacking. So what you do is you first start with the variables, and then the next thing that it takes is the numbers. So we can say you want to unpack these numbers. So just like the way the numbers are here. So you're going to actually like assign it a variable. So like x, y, z. Then we assign it to numbers. Then from here we can now perform multiplication. So you can say print x multiplied by y and y multiplied by z. So if you now run this, we now see that we have 48. So this is one of the powerful thing about Python. So you can unpack items instead of accessing them directly from indexing. So that was really a quick one about tuples. So you can do more research to learn more, because it's really a wide topic. So the next thing we want to look at is dictionaries, the key, their value. See you there.